Welcome, rare gems. The most powerful presence is often the one that doesn't ask to be seen. You might not notice it yourself, but the way you move through life leaves an impression that lingers. There's something about you that unsettles the shallow and comforts the real. You don't crave attention. In fact, you often feel most at peace when left alone. But somehow people still watch you. They're curious. They sense something different, even if they can't name it. That difference is your charisma, not the kind that needs a stage or applause. Your charisma is quiet. It lives in your honesty, your calm, your refusal to fake what you don't feel. It's in the way you observe before speaking, how you speak with purpose, and how you never pretend to be anything other than who you are. You don't follow trends, you don't chase validation. And maybe you've wondered if that makes you too distant, too misunderstood, too much. But the truth is, your energy leaves fingerprints on people's minds. You inspire others not by trying, but by being, by showing what it looks like to trust your own pace, to respect your own peace. The world teaches women to charm, to please, to soften their edges. But your edges tell a story, and the ones who matter lean in, not away. So if you've ever doubted your power, don't. The kind of charisma you carry isn't loud, but it is unforgettable. And the right people will always feel it, even in your silence. Let's dive in the rare gems. Number 1. You're dangerous to the superficial, and not because you attack them or try to expose them. You don't even have to say much. Just by being who you are, you disrupt everything they rely on to feel important. Fake people feed on performance. They need constant approval. They survive off shallow compliments, inflated stories, and dramatic moments that keep them at the center of attention. But when they're around you, none of that works. You don't react, you don't chase, you don't play along, you see through it, and worse for them, you don't pretend not to. Your silence around their drama isn't passive, it's powerful. You're not buying into their games, and that makes them feel exposed. It's like holding up a mirror they weren't ready to look into. Suddenly they realize their usual tricks have no effect on you, and that makes them nervous. Here's the thing. You're not trying to make anyone uncomfortable. You're just not willing to lower yourself to fake bonding, forced laughter, or pointless competition. For example, when someone brags endlessly to get your admiration and you simply nod or change the subject, they feel it. That moment of silence says everything. You're not impressed. You're not interested. You're not playing. This is why some people either avoid you or talk about you behind your back. It's not because you're cold. It's because your authenticity reminds them how much of themselves they've abandoned to fit in. And to people who thrive on masks, that's terrifying. Your presence calls people to be real, to show up without the filters, to stop performing and start connecting. And not everyone is ready for that, but that's what makes your charisma so rare. You don't force it, you simply live it. And that quiet refusal to play small is exactly what makes you unforgettable and untouchable. Number 2, your energy can't be replicated, and that's not ego talking, it's just the truth. You don't operate from trends or borrowed personalities. You move from a place deep inside you, built from everything you've seen, felt, overcome, and learned. That kind of energy doesn't come from books or motivational speeches. It comes from lived experience. And because of that, people can feel when you're real, without you having to explain a thing. That's why others try to copy you. They watch how you carry yourself, how you stay calm when things get messy, how you speak only when necessary, and how people are drawn to you without you even trying. But what they don't understand is that what you carry isn't a performance. It's not an act they can rehearse and perfect, it's a frequency. And unless someone has gone through what you've gone through and faced it the way you did, they can't access it. Let's say someone mimics your tone, your style, even your mannerisms. On the surface, they might fool a few people, but deep down, others will feel that something's missing. It's like eating food that looks great but has no flavor. It doesn't stick. It doesn't leave a mark. You've built yourself from the inside out. You've faced your fears, you've walked away from things that looked good but felt wrong, and you've stayed true to yourself even when it cost you. That's where your energy comes from. And no one can download that overnight. So when people try to become you, they'll always feel one step behind. Because what you carry can't be taught. It can only be earned. And you've earned it through truth, discipline, and self-respect. That's why your presence lingers. That's why people remember you. Because you're not a copy. You're the original. And originals can't be cloned. Number 3, you don't flatter, you reflect. You don't flatter people just to make them feel good. You're not the type to throw around compliments to get on someone's good side. What you do instead is far more powerful. You reflect, you observe. You see the things most people overlook. And when you finally speak on it, it hits deep. That's why when you tell someone they're strong, it doesn't sound like a feel-good phrase. It feels earned. It feels real. You're not just pointing out what they already show the world. You're pointing out what they've been quietly carrying when no one was watching. People are used to flattery. They hear, "You look amazing," or "You're so talented" every day, often from people who don't even mean it. But when you speak, your words land differently. You're not trying to charm anyone, you're just being honest. And that honesty is rare. For example, imagine someone is always the reliable one in the group, the one who holds things together but rarely gets credit for it. You notice it. And one day you tell them, "You're the one everyone leans on, and I don't think people say thank you enough." That kind of statement stays with a person. They'll remember it years later, not because you said it in a flashy way, but because you meant it. That's what makes your charisma different. You don't just tell people what they want to hear, you tell them what they need to hear, and only when it's true. Your compliments don't come from the surface. They come from a place of depth, and people can feel that. You may not say much, but when you do speak, your words cut through the noise. That's what makes you unforgettable. You don't flatter, you reflect. And in a world full of noise, your truth feels like clarity. Number 4. You have nothing to prove, yet everything about you proves something. You're not out here trying to impress anyone. You're not chasing titles, likes, or empty praise. You don't feel the need to explain yourself or convince people of your worth. And still, people notice. They may not always understand it, but they feel it. Your life speaks for you. You carry yourself in a way that says, "I know who I am," without ever having to say it. It's not arrogance, it's quiet certainty. You've made peace with your path, even if it doesn't make sense to others. That peace is loud in a world full of people constantly trying to outdo each other. You don't flash your accomplishments. You don't show off what you have or name drop who you know. You let your actions speak, your boundaries speak, your ability to walk away from what doesn't feel right. That speaks louder than any performance ever could. Take this for example. While others are busy explaining their every move to feel validated, you're moving in silence. And yet those same people start asking questions about you. How does she stay so grounded? Why doesn't she react like everyone else? That's the beauty of your presence. You don't sell yourself, but your choices, your discipline, your ability to stay true to yourself. They say more than words ever could. You're not here to compete. You're here to live fully, honestly, and on your own terms. And ironically, that's exactly what makes you magnetic. You don't walk around looking for approval. You've already given it to yourself. And that alone is proof of everything people are still trying to find. You are the message, not because you say it, but because you live it. Number 5. You leave emotional fingerprints without even meaning to. It's not about being loud, dramatic, or trying to be memorable. In fact, you probably walk away from most conversations thinking, that was nothing special. But to the other person, it was. You said something, or you didn't. You looked them in the eye and saw them. You listened without interrupting. You stayed quiet when most people would have filled the space with noise, and somehow that moment sticks with them. Most people go through their day hearing the same surface-level chatter, small talk, empty flattery, forced laughter. But then you come along and you're different. You ask questions that make people pause. You respond with honesty. You leave silence when it's needed. And it makes people feel things they weren't ready to feel. You might tell someone something simple like, "You don't need to try so hard," or "I noticed how much you hold everything together." And suddenly, they feel seen in a way they didn't expect. That's the emotional fingerprint you leave behind. It's not loud, but it lingers. It stays in the back of their mind long after you're gone. Even strangers feel it. A few words from you at the right moment can unlock something in them. A sense of clarity, a quiet question, a reminder of something they forgot about themselves. You don't haunt people by being mysterious or unreadable. You haunt them in the most beautiful way, by waking them up, by reminding them of what's real, by showing them, even for a second, what authenticity feels like. That's why people remember you. Not because you demand attention, but because your energy touches something deeper. You don't just pass through people's lives, you leave a mark, a subtle shift, a moment of truth they didn't know they needed until you gave it to them. Number 6. Your charisma doesn't come from charm, tricks, or a playbook. It comes from self-mastery. You're not sitting around thinking, how do I get people to like me? You're too busy being real with yourself, checking your own thoughts, making sure your life aligns with your values. And that quiet discipline, that self-awareness, that's what people feel when they're around you. You're not trying to be magnetic, you just are. Because you've done the work. You've faced your own darkness. You've held yourself accountable when no one was watching. You've let go of things that once defined you, and now you don't need external approval to feel whole. That's the real source of your charisma. You've built it from the inside out. You're not the loudest voice in the room, and you're not the one chasing attention. But somehow, people find themselves paying attention to you. Not because you asked for it, but because you carry a sense of calm and direction that most people are still searching for. Take this example. You might be in a group where everyone's trying to outshine each other, talking over one another, bragging about achievements. But you just sit there, grounded, not competing. And somehow you end up being the one they remember. That's not strategy. That's self-mastery in action. People want to follow someone who knows who they are. And that's you. You don't manipulate. You don't perform. You just live with intention, clarity, and peace. And in a world where everyone is trying to be noticed, your ability to stay true to yourself becomes a light people naturally gravitate toward. That's the secret. You're not trying to win people. You're too focused on mastering yourself. And that's why people end up respecting, admiring, and quietly following your lead. Number 7. You challenge norms without waving a banner, and that's exactly what makes you so powerful. You don't need to shout about being different. You don't post long speeches about breaking the system or living outside the box. You simply live on your own terms, and that alone is enough to make people uncomfortable. In a world that pushes conformity, your quiet refusal to follow the script is the loudest statement of all. You don't live for approval. You don't measure your worth by what others think is normal or acceptable. If something doesn't feel right, you walk away, even if everyone else is clapping for it. You don't stay in a situation just because it looks good. You stay if it feels honest. That level of clarity shakes people. It forces them to question why they're still stuck in lives they don't even like. You're not trying to start a movement, but you end up starting one anyway, because people watch how you live and realize they've been playing small. You don't ask for permission, you just do it. And that's a kind of rebellion most don't even have the courage to imagine. For example, you might not follow the usual timeline. School, job, marriage, kids. You might choose solitude over a crowded social scene. You might choose peace over popularity. And when people ask why, you simply say, because it works for me. That's it. No apology, no long speech, just truth. And that truth unsettles people who built their entire life around being accepted. You don't challenge them with arguments. You challenge them by being free. You don't rebel to prove a point. You are the point. Your life is the quiet resistance, and your ability to stay rooted in yourself without needing the world to agree is what makes you unforgettable. Number 8, you inspire without intending to, and that's what makes it so real. You're not trying to lead anyone. You're not putting on a performance or shaping your life so others will admire it. You're just being yourself, quietly, honestly, and fully. But still, people watch you. They study how you move, how you make decisions, how you stay grounded when everyone else seems to be falling apart, and without even knowing it, they start to copy you. Some try to imitate your calm. They try to match your quiet confidence, your ability to stay collected even when things get messy. Others copy your focus, your discipline, the way you don't get pulled in 100 directions. They want what you have. But here's what they often miss. Your charisma doesn't come from trying to be followed. It comes from not needing to be. You don't need an audience. You don't crave attention. You're not out here asking people to see your worth. You live your worth. And that's what inspires others the most. It's not about the clothes you wear, the words you use, or the lifestyle you post. It's about the way you walk through life with self-respect. The way you say no to what drains you. The way you protect your peace like it's sacred, because to you, it is. For example, someone might see you leave a toxic situation without creating a scene, and they start to rethink what they're tolerating. You didn't tell them to change, you just showed what it looks like to choose yourself. That's real influence. You don't move to impress, you move in alignment, and people feel that. Your life becomes a quiet reminder that freedom exists. And it's not about approval or status, it's about living in truth. That's why you're unforgettable. Not because you asked to be, but because you didn't need to be. Number 9. You don't just carry mystery, you are the unsolved puzzle. And not because you're hiding anything. In fact, you're probably one of the most honest people someone will ever meet. But the mystery around you isn't about secrecy, it's about depth. Most people are used to others revealing everything just to be liked. Oversharing, overselling, constantly signaling who they are and what they stand for to win attention or approval. But you don't do that. You're not broadcasting your every thought. You're not performing. And that alone makes people curious. You're self-contained in a way that feels almost unfamiliar. You don't post your entire life to prove you're living one. You don't chase applause to know your value. You're whole on your own. And that kind of wholeness, it confuses people who've never experienced it. Your presence makes people ask silent questions. What's she thinking? How is she so calm? Why doesn't she care what others think? And no matter how long they know you, they'll always feel like there's more. Because there is. You're layered, not by design, but by nature. You've been through things. You've rebuilt yourself. And you've kept the parts of you that matter, not for show, but for substance. You might not say much, but everything about you says enough. And that drives people crazy, in the best way. They want to figure you out. They want to know what fuels you, what your silence means, what your smile hides. But here's the truth. You're not some riddle to solve. You're not playing hard to get. You're just not playing at all. And that's the real mystery. You're not mysterious because you're distant. You're mysterious because you've built a peace within yourself that doesn't need outside permission to exist. And most people have no idea how to do that. That's why they stare. That's why they talk. That's why they never forget you. Number 10. You expose insecurities without needing to say a single word. And it's not because you're trying to call anyone out. It's just what happens when someone who's real shows up in a world full of people trying hard to be liked. You don't follow trends just to feel relevant. You're not constantly reshaping yourself to fit what's popular. You wear what feels right, speak when it matters, and stay quiet when the noise is empty. That kind of authenticity is rare. And when people come across it, they start to question themselves, because they've been performing for so long, they forgot what it looks like to simply be. You're not wearing a mask, and when people who meet someone like you, it creates friction. Internal friction. They may not say it, but they start noticing the parts of themselves they've been hiding or exaggerating. You don't point fingers, you don't call it out, but your presence quietly holds up a mirror. For example, someone might be constantly trying to prove how successful they are. Loud stories, name-dropping, showing off every small win. But when they realize you're not even trying to prove yourself, and you still have peace, it messes with them. They start wondering why they feel so restless, so hungry for applause. That's your quiet power at work. You don't preach self-worth, you live it. And people feel that. And it's not always comfortable. Some people might distance themselves from you, not because they dislike you, but because being around you reminds them of who they're not ready to be yet. You don't expose their insecurities by judging them. You do it by staying true to yourself, and that's what makes your presence so unsettling, yet unforgettable. You make people think deeper. You force self-reflection just by existing. And that's a rare kind of influence most will never understand, but they'll always feel it. Number 11. You attract without performing. And that's what sets you apart from the noise. You don't force attention. You don't need to be the loudest, the flashiest, or the most dramatic person in the room. While others are constantly trying to prove they matter, you're just being. And that simple act of authenticity draws people in more powerfully than any performance ever could. You don't dress to be seen. You dress to feel like yourself. You don't speak just to fill silence. You speak when you have something real to say. You're not chasing spotlight moments or trying to steal the show. Yet somehow, people notice you anyway. They're intrigued, because there's no act to decode, no script being played out. You're just honest, still, centered. People are used to energy that begs for attention. Yours doesn't. Yours holds attention, quietly, naturally. You leave people wondering, who is she? Not because you're trying to be mysterious, but because you don't need their eyes on you to feel seen. Take this for example. Everyone's talking, showing off, oversharing, trying to be impressive. And you're just observing calmly, without trying to compete. And somehow, by the end of it all, someone says, "I don't know why, but I feel like you really get it." That's your magic. You don't demand space, but your presence shifts something. You don't reach for validation, and yet people crave your approval. You don't perform, you exist fully, and that, in a world full of noise, is what makes you unforgettable. Number 12. You intimidate without even trying, and that's not something you planned or built. It just happens. And not because you're loud or commanding, it's the opposite. It's the way you carry yourself. Quiet, observant, sure of who you are. That calm confidence doesn't scream for attention, but it grabs it. And not everyone knows how to handle that kind of presence. Your silence makes people uncomfortable sometimes, not because you're being rude or distant, but because you're not playing along with the usual script. You're not rushing to fill the silence. You're not laughing just to keep the peace. You're not agreeing just to fit in. And when people can't read you or predict your reaction, they start second-guessing themselves. They might try to impress you. They might overshare. They might act louder than usual. Deep down, it's not about you intimidating them on purpose. It's about how your self-control reflects their lack of it. You show them something they didn't expect, someone who doesn't need the room's approval to feel at ease. Take this for example. You're in a group conversation. Everyone's talking over each other, trying to be the most interesting. But you're just listening, calmly, not needing to compete. And then someone says, "You're so quiet, what are you thinking?" That question isn't casual. It's their insecurity looking for reassurance. Your stillness made them feel exposed. You don't force anyone to feel small, but when you're steady in who you are, it naturally shakes those who haven't found that in themselves yet. That's why you feel intimidating without ever raising your voice. It's not about fear, it's about awareness. You carry a kind of power that doesn't need words. And the truth is, the people who are meant for you won't be intimidated. They'll be inspired. The rest, they'll either level up or back off. In final words, you don't have to announce your value. Real power is always felt, not forced. The truth is, you've probably never seen your own charisma the way others feel it. Because you're not chasing attention, you don't always notice the impact you make. But it's there, in your silence, in your calm, in the way people remember something you said or didn't say long after you're gone. You don't wear your strength like armor. You carry it in your presence, quiet, grounded, unapologetically real. And that's exactly why it hits different. You're not trying to impress anyone. You're not tailoring your identity to fit what others expect. You live on your own terms. And without even trying, that gives others permission to question who they're pretending to be. You don't owe the world performance. You owe yourself truth. And the more you walk in that truth, the more you realize how rare you are. That calm you've built, that focus, that self-respect, it isn't something people forget. Even if they can't explain it, they feel it. So if you've ever wondered why some people act strange around you, why they copy your choices, or why they keep coming back to your energy, it's because your presence wakes something up in them. You don't force your light on others. You just refuse to dim it. And that silent refusal, that's your charisma. Never doubt it. You don't need a spotlight to shine. You already do, just by being fully, fiercely, and quietly you. Thank you for watching The Rare Gems, and God bless you.